Most people truly have their children's best interest at heart, but with a topic as vastly misrepresented and misinformed as ADHD, many of them might be doing more harm than good. My inspiration came from a Desperate Housewives episode where Lynette, a mother of 3, goes to her school and the teacher suggests her children need to look into treatment for ADHD. Here's what happens.
I hesitate bringing this up, since you got so ugly about it last time.
They don't have attention deficit disorder, and I'm not going to drug my boys just to make your job easier. I'd rather change teachers.
The boys are in my class because I'm the only teacher who can handle them.
Yeah, her reaction is by no means uncommon. I'm pretty sure my parents might have reacted the same way, but it is problematic for a few reasons. First, it's uninformed. Her children do have ADHD in the series, so the appropriate way to react to this would have been to take the information from the teacher into consideration and to go do her research. Second, it's ableist. She implies that if the teacher were to do her job better, her kids would be just fine.
If the school and the pediatrician both think the twins could stand to be medicated, then what's the problem?
I used to run a company with 85 people, and now I can't wrangle 3 small boys without doping them. Talk about feeling like a failure.
It is not a personal or a parental failure for someone to have ADHD. It is not an institutional failure. It just is what it is. But this attitude spreads the harmful belief that people's disabilities can just be relieved by doing something differently or working harder, which makes people internalize all of their struggles and feel very self-conscious about it, gathering unnecessary trauma. It's dismissive. She's almost offended by the idea of ADHD, not something that she would do if the teacher were to suggest a diabetes diagnosis, for example. She is clearly unaware of the far-reaching consequences of untreated ADHD and the life-changing outcomes therapy and medication can have for most individuals. Otherwise, she would probably not refer to it as drugging her children, even if they didn't end up having ADHD. At some point, ADHD used to be called minimal brain dysfunction, and I bet Lynette would just go and research into that straight away because it sounds so much more serious. And it is, because there is a lot more to it than just attention deficit and hyperactivity. What happens when parents like Lynette dismiss their children's ADHD? Well, 70 to 80% of children with ADHD never grow out of it. For them, the consequences are lifelong. In kindergarten, school, high school, and university, they have average lower grades. They are more likely to repeat a grade, get kicked out, or drop out themselves. 47% of them get bullied. 16% become bullies themselves. They are significantly more likely to engage in acts of aggression, to get into fights, to self-harm, and more. I'm highlighting more because one of you shared this heartbreaking story in the comments, and I think it's so important to know. 60% of ADHDers have at least one other condition: anxiety, depression, OCD, autism. You can unlock things like psychotic disorders, especially if they engage into substance abuse, which they do. 20% of all substance abuse patients are ADHDers, mostly because they self-medicate. If they don't have medication, they need that dopamine from somewhere. Many of them become addicted. It is so heartbreaking, but it only gets worse over time because ADHD individuals, on average, end up in lower paying jobs and they suffer from underemployment and stress at work and overwhelmed interpersonal issues, and according to some, have an only 35% full-time employment versus 60% in the general population. ADHD individuals have more social struggles, fewer friends, increased feelings of loneliness, and low self-esteem. They enter more unhealthy and abusive relationships, and they have a higher turnover of relationships, which means they lose their friends, they break up and divorce more often, they cheat more often, some of them have multiple partners, and a significant amount are also members of the LGBTQIA+ community, which makes it really hard for them because a lot of this behavior is not acceptable in society. It is judged and frowned upon and penalized. 38% of ADHD women have an unplanned pregnancy by the age of 25. Up to 68% have an unplanned pregnancy at some point in their life versus up to 20% in the general population. Many of these people end up being single parents. And then there's health. From the very earliest age, we are much more likely to get into some kind of accident. We get into 2 to 3 times more road accidents. But we also live, on average, much more unhealthy lifestyles based on food and exercise habits. So many of us suffer from eating disorders, obesity, diabetes, heart conditions. All these things really come together. And then there's adulting. We are not the best at adulting because we struggle with financial things, we spend recklessly, sometimes we gamble a lot, problems with the law, sometimes we break the rules. And I found some research that suggests that 25% of people in prison might have ADHD, and they also said that if they had had some sort of help, they probably would not have ended up where they did end up. I'm sure you can see how that is possible. It all comes together, all these little things draining our quality of life. It is not the most enjoyable thing to live this way, but we don't live that long either, because on average we have a 13-year shorter life expectancy, and that is serious. That is not just about not paying attention at school. I hope that has become abundantly clear from the collection of research that I did for the outcomes. So why are parents so hesitant to address this? Some believe that it's just a minor hyperactivity and distraction issue, and as I said, the name doesn't help. But hopefully, now that we've looked at the outcomes, that's all cleared up. Some believe it to be an affliction of modern life, screens, and the internet, but there is a lot of historical evidence for ADHD. Screens and internet can't give it to you. It is genetic or it results from a brain injury. Some believe that with the right organization and productivity advice and applications, we can find a way to cope. But while those things are incredibly important and helpful, we cannot truly utilize them until we have a solid basis to stand on, something like therapy. And there are so many misconceptions about medication. So let's just get some facts straight. First of all, it's not drugs. The active substance in there is not nearly enough. Second of all, it is not a gateway drug to anything else and does not get you physically addicted. It protects many people from doing actual illegal things to get their dopamine. Third, it is considered safe to use even in children, and it should work for most people in the right dose and type of medication. Of course, there are some exceptions, but this is a very personal thing that a doctor could look into. Fourth, there can be side effects, but often the positive effects of the medication outweigh any negatives, especially as compared to all the negative outcomes that we just talked about to now. The medication actually offers the opportunity for many ADHDers to live out the life that they want to live out, to do more of what they want to do, to struggle less, something that we can all aspire towards, and it is a huge privilege. So supporting people and understanding them in the decision to take medication is really the friendly and loving thing to do. But I want to show you another scene here.
I'm afraid if I change the bad stuff, I'm going to change the good stuff.
Yeah, it's a tough call.
Like this mug. I love this mug. If I medicate them, are they still going to make me a mug like this?
Lynette fears that her children would not be the same after ADHD treatment. And I've seen a lot of people say that medicated individuals look too serious, as if the life has been sucked out of them. And I can really see how that could freak someone out. But here's what they need to realize. Sometimes they can be serious too. It's more of a state of relaxed contemplation than anything. Pleasantly existing, thinking, doing one task at a time, it's convenient. Or would you rather do all the stuff that you have to do with a buzzing brain full of thoughts and a hyperactive body? Probably not. And I assure you, we don't either. For us, it's a bit of a vacation actually to sometimes be able to be calm and relaxed and serious and get done whatever we need to get done, because it can be very exhausting to live with an ADHD brain.
If I medicate them, are they still going to make me a mug like this?
You know it's leaking.
Yeah, I know.
These are the cups we make with ADHD. And that's the kind of homework we write. Those are the exams we do. And eventually, Those are the tasks we deliver at work. And suddenly, it's no longer cute and quirky. It is a serious disorder. By then, most of us have developed self-image issues or comorbid mental disorders. Some of us are injured, in debt, or pregnant, or addicted. Some of us have been in accidents, and some are gone. By then, the damage is done. Please take ADHD seriously. Don't let your preconceptions and love blind you. I recommend listening to my ADHD story. In this video, I share how I found out I had it, what my childhood and adolescence experience has been with it. A lot of good information there that you might relate to or use to understand someone else's experience.